Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's so wonderful to see you again. Thank you so much for tuning into my channel. So today I want to talk about a very highly requested topic from so many people, and we are going to discuss how we are choosing timelines. Now, if you pay attention to some of the videos that I make in the past, both healing, meditation, and also some of the conceptual videos that I make, there is mechanics in our creation. There is a very beautiful, intelligent design in our systems, in our universe that we participate in. So when people ask me about timelines and how we are co-creating in these timelines, it's really a matter of understanding who we are, what we are, and the role that we play in this symphony of co-creation. And so that being said, what we are experiencing in this world is really an interdependent co-creation. And a lot of times we're not really sure how that functions, because a lot of times we end up feeling quite separate, in fact, from the whole. And that is very much an illusion. It's an illusion because it is an incomplete truth of what we inherently are. And what I mean inherently, I mean everything down to your molecular, cellular structure of your body is designed to create, and it participates in the co-creation of timelines which you are experiencing. And on the grander scale, we are collectively experiencing collective timelines, micro and macro, as bloodlines, DNA bloodlines. We are collectively experiencing them as groups in our cultural groups, racial groups, where the parts of the world that we are born define another bubble of group of consciousness that is experiencing something collectively. And then as a whole, we are collectively co-creating and experiencing something as humans in this collective timeline. And so really what that means is that we are constantly experiencing on multiple dimensional timelines simultaneously. Let's take it to the next level, our interdimensionality. In dream time, we often think that dreams are just imaginary states of the subconscious mind that we are kind of tuning into. But our ability to manifest and co-create is actually much more complex, and it really requires a study of ourselves and what the subconscious and unconscious, the collective unconscious, consists of. Really, it's infinite possibility, it's infinite potential. Therefore, there is no limit to what we can manifest, what we can imagine, what we can create. However, there is no limit when you understand how to move beyond the collective programming. Within the collective programming, there is a structure of belief systems that are inherently programmed within us at the time of conception, and just in general in the roles that we play as humans in this collective human experience. Therefore, this really brings in the concept of free will. And when do we have free will? Is there free will? Many people that are experiencing contact or abduction experiences, interdimensional contact experiences, people that are experiencing military abductions, experiences, interdimensional phenomena, even experiences in your own life where we feel helpless and out of control in the things that we're experiencing. All of those things are reflections of core belief systems of our holographic generator that we have within us. And the generator of our hologram is basically made up of vibrational frequency. It's made up of this multidimensional organism that's a system of holographic projection. And that being said, the holographic projection is being informed on many different levels in the multidimensional body. The entire multidimensional body is a structure of it's an antenna and it is receiving. It's actually more like a router. It's kind of receiving and exchanging data with its environment at all times, and it's doing that interdimensionally, 360 degrees around the entire body. So even the cells in the back of your body are exchanging with that environment. And then, of course, we tune into the network, which is the essentially what we can call the morphogenetic field, which is the instruction manual for the entire physical, non-physical structure that makes up what we are. So I'm going to share with you a little presentation that I created regarding this concept. And I think it's really important to look at because it helps us understand what timelines are and what it means when we are co-creating on that level. So when we think of the chakra system, we have an idea that the chakra system is actually stationary vortices that are spinning in the center of our body. And basically they are interacting with the world outside of us. But we don't really understand what that actually means. And I want to clarify that because this is really, it's information that I've never seen anywhere else, but I think that it's really, really important so that you can understand what you are and how this works, how all this works. So now, every layer of the body manages a certain section, let's call it a certain section of our body. Our physical bodies are compartmentalized by vibrational frequency. So even the organs, I'll come back to that, are communicating. They are systems of communication with the rest of the network. Okay, so here, this is what the physical body actually look like. This is what the chakras actually are. Essentially, each one of the chakras are vortices. So each one of these chakras are vortices. And when you zoom into the chakra, each chakra is made up of ribbons of data that looks a lot like DNA. It's like coiled ribbons of data that make up all together. They create a vortex in themselves. So again, it's self-similar structures of frequency, of energy that create these structures of collective frequency. So each one of these chakras that are emanating are basically, this isn't only an emanation, they are ribbons of coiled life force. And within those coiled life force, like DNA, but it's holographic DNA, this holographic DNA that is connected to our holographic DNA in the physical body. So in our physical body, we have cells that are oscillating, and that oscillation is informed by the DNA that is writing the protein that creates the physical structure of the physical body. Okay, so that DNA has a vibrational frequency in different parts of the body. It has certain instruction manuals. It's accessing specific instruction manuals in order to create the data processes to create specific parts of the body. So the neck has the instructions and the cells to create and restore and regenerate all of the cells within that area. That's like a nucleus of data. And then every single part of the body has specific instructions as part of an entire whole holistic organism that is intercommunicating with one another. All the cells in the body communicate with one another, and they are all interconnected holographically through a network of quantum non-locality that is created by the oscillation systems of each cell. Now, what that does is the DNA, the genetic connection that is connected to the physical body, produces a collective frequency within each area of the body that is then projected into these ribbons of life force that create an environmental, I almost want to call it like a membrane. It's like an etheric membrane. It's an overlay of your body. And this etheric membrane that is around your body ranges in vibrational frequency, which means that much like light, it functions in that all of the cells, all of the structure, the architectural structure that makes up this vibrational frequency can only read and bounce off the frequency within that range. Okay, That's why it is designed to attract and emanate that same frequency. So let's go to the sacral chakra, for example. The sacral, again, it manages all of the organs within the sacral system. Okay, so for example, sexual organs, the womb for the women. And so all of these organs are designed down to the cellular level and are contributing to the collective data that is produced into the ribbons of genetic data, holographic data, that are then emanating into this second etheric membrane. And the etheric membrane is something that is around our body our entire time. And let's go up to the third. Again, that's the emotional body. So everything that manages the emotions, the organs that manage the emotions, that process emotions, the chemicals that process those emotional systems, all of these systems in the solar plexus, because the organs are participating in the processing of data. So it comes in as vibrational frequency in through the pores of the body, and then into the skin, and then into the nervous system. And the nervous system is like a runway of energy, and the meridians of the body also overlay. Meridians of the body are essentially runways of life force through the body. So this data that comes into the body through the skin, through the nervous system, in down to the tissue of the body, down to the muscles, all of this information is allocated to the beautiful intelligence of this body by vibrational frequency. So one event, one experience is self-organizing itself in the physical body. It knows exactly how to trigger the physical body, the responses. And most of us, when we are in a state of cause and effect, we are just pulling from the memory data bank from these systems. So even the organs, the muscles, all of that are storing memory banks of repetitive experiences that match vibrationally to the experience that you're currently having. So if you're currently experiencing a traumatic event, for example, an abandoning moment, your entire body is beginning to pull in to that vibrational frequency of that trauma, and it begins to go into all of its data bank of previous experiences where it's had that same trauma from the subconscious mind, from the memory of the body, because in moments of trauma, we might think we go into survival mode, fight, flight, or freeze, but in that response, on the back end of that, there's many things that are happening. There are chemicals that are being secreted in the body, stress, hormones, all of these things are creating memory signatures in the body. And this is how trauma is stored. And that one moment of experience creates a vibrational signature, and it informs that point of creation. Now, let me fast forward let me explain what that means, okay? In the physical body, we have an axis within the body, this axis which makes up the physical body. Imagine that you're here at the center point of your body, but the entire body, we're moving on this horizontal and vertical plane. Each one of these planes is holding frequency from the 0 point out to its largest extremity of the frequency field. So what that does is that it creates these systems, these points of frequency, and this is what the hologram is projected on. Okay, so the intention of your holographic fractal hologram is projected within this field of reference of points, and each one of these points is informed by the intention to experience of every single molecule, cell that is participating in creating your entire organism, your entire physical body. So within this field here, within this field that we have within the body, we are storing information. The more at the center of the field that information is, the more neutral and expansive it is. The further in the field that the information stores, usually past trauma, within the first 4 layers, usually 4, 5 layers, maybe 7 layers of the body. This is where we're experiencing and storing the experiences of this current lifetime. However, each one of the ribbons of the chakra that are made up of genetic data, which is basically holographic structures of liquid information that are within the field, are constantly pulling in and out of data from other repetitive patterns as well. And all of that is encoded in your DNA. This is basically, your body is basically a hologram of holographic DNA. The information that is in the DNA is being holographically projected into your field. And this is what designs your every experience. So this is really important because in the physical body, as we see our physical bodies here, every single one of these fields is basically interacting with your environment. And these first 3-dimensional fields are the ones that are the densest. They are the slowest wavelength, which means that they are closer to the physical sensory systems of the body. And they are deeply, powerfully connected to the senses of the body because they are the routers that translate the frequency patterns that we are receiving in the physical body. And all of that is then processed through the different systems, the energetic system, the muscles, every layer of the body, down to the cellular, molecular data again, and bounces back. And so this generation system that we have of experiencing now will depend completely on the organism, which is the physical body itself, your entire organism, how aware you are of the data that you're allowing into your space or not allowing into your space. The more you're aware, the more you have the ability to somewhat design what you're experiencing. Okay, but let's take it a step further because we talk a lot about programming and deprogramming. And what does that mean? That a lot of the programs that we are inheriting from our family circles, from traumatic events that we've had since the womb, past lives, which we don't even touch yet, but all of these things are informing the everyday experiences. And so it really defines where we're at vibrationally. Now, what your vibrational signature is going to be depends on where your focus is, where your attention is at, where are your common everyday patterns at. Are you in constant survival mode, or are you in constant states of fear? Are you in constant states of joy? Now, it's very important to kind of look at where you're at because emotions are complex, and usually what we think is valuable is the external expression, but what's actually manifesting into your physical experience is the subconscious belief systems. And the subconscious belief systems are actually the true core emotions. The majority of us, we really have no idea what our true core emotions are, unfortunately, because we are so programmed not to feel our emotions, to neglect, to ignore, to try not to experience emotions, that the most of us, we don't even know what we're feeling or why we're feeling the way we're feeling. So this requires a complete awareness and refocus of your attention from the external experience into the internal experience. And this can be a very traumatic process because we are trained, we are indoctrinated in many ways to be in a constant state of survival mode. And that constant state of survival mode really pulls us into these patterns of basically becoming a puppet, an energetic puppet of your environment. And so this is where our systems of control have utilized psychology, these very, very deep psychology, to understand how to manipulate and control the masses in our society. Everything from the color of the restaurant that you go to that entices you to eat food, to feel comfortable, to desire things, to stores, to the way that you are, user interface design in your computers or your phone that studies how the psychology of human is interacting and responding to technology in order to know how to produce certain responses. And this is something that is heavily, heavily studied in our society by the scientists and by those that are in roles of power, because in order to have a very sustainable model in the systems that are being created, they need to understand the human from the inside out in order to be able to control. Control is just a matter of hijacking your consciousness. And the more unconscious and unaware you are of your body, the easier it is to manipulate and to make you do things that you don't even want to do. And so because we are a society in survival mode, most times, unfortunately, we fall into these patterns. And it's really interesting to see, I'm just going to stop this for a moment. It's really interesting to see how society has really just shown that that's where we're at, unfortunately, collectively at this time. Just looking at everything that's happened in the past couple of years, even in the past couple of weeks, even in the past 48 hours, where, for example, the entertainment industry might do something just to trigger and cause certain emotional responses. And the dangerous and complex thing about that is that these things are studied in a very profound way. The way that you respond to things causes subconscious belief systems about yourself and the world that you're participating in. And little by little, these little mini subconscious and subliminal messages create a collective thought. So humanity is very much, in a way, herded into certain ways of believing and seeing and perceiving reality, which is manipulated and it's orchestrated. So when we talk about timeline creation, we really need to become educated on this whole understanding of how we are contributing, how we are collectively co-creating. And it really isn't until the human becomes aware of the mechanics of themselves that they can even begin to have the conversation on how to manifest, how to co-create. Okay, so let's go back to that slide, because essentially when we are in survival mode, this is what our body looks like. And the colors of your chakras or the colors of these fields, really, those are just pretty common colors that we've known, but also because these colors are indicative of the wavelengths, how light is moving, how the waveform of that light is either moving slower or faster, will reflect light. And so it produces these colors. These are the colors that are being produced. But if you look at your own chakras, which I highly suggest you to do, and we'll do that workshop later on, that you take a look at the frequency that is within your physical body to see what's going on there. Because every single person, because of your programming and experiences, will have different frequencies at each level. Okay, so let's move on. So when you're in a state of fear, you are basically processing down here in a state of shame, guilt, fear, anxieties. All of these things are running your program. So you basically, your entire organism becomes a resonance to this like experience. And so this is where we begin to enter into the topic of timeline manifestation, because essentially timelines, for every thought form in this network, let me just show you, coming back to this so you can get a visual. Every single thought form, imagine a thought form being every single one of these dots, is interconnected to a million points of the same. So in this universal design, in our physical bodies down to our cellular level and in the etheric level of our expression, wherever the universe is focused on, it looks like that's the center point of the entire universe. So, and this is basically how the universal structure looks. When you go to these points in the universe, it looks like that's the center point and everything is expanding from that point. That's what it looks like. That's what it feels like. And this plays true in the etheric realm as well. It's the exact same, again, self-similar design of our architecture of reality that we're experiencing. So in the etheric realm, in the etheric point of manifestation, every single thought form that you have produces that effect. It becomes the center point of a creation. And every single thought, imagine all of these being different potential possibilities of one event. At the very center of this cube is a thought. And in that center cube is essentially, let's say it's an experience to experience wealth. Okay, so that's at the center core of that, or love. All of these points are now designed as potential timelines from that one thought form. So as you can see, there are infinite ways that it can manifest. And all of these points interconnect with one another. So the potential creation really is interconnecting with one another. And what will inform each one of those points is basically the subconscious belief systems that create vibrational frequency that are basically making you an entire system of manifestation. You're magnetizing and becoming a magnet or in resonance to these same like experiences. And it's not even that we are attracting, but we already have all of those potential timelines in our physical body. And whatever you embody more of, if in this body you are you've never cleared out your blockages and traumas from fears or whatever it is, most of your energy, it's going to create a polarity. It's going to choose a polarity. And so your manifestation is now, in other words, infused or tainted by that limiting and specific polarity. So essentially, we don't create. We are just a product of our own limitations. And let's take it to the bigger picture now. Let's take it to the bigger picture in that we look at ourselves as a part of a whole. Essentially, let me find that slide. Hold on a second. Essentially, we are basically participating in a big, larger co-creation, right? So here we are experiencing the three-dimensional plane, but in reality, look at how we are so deeply interconnected with all the other fields of our reality. And to make things even more clear, what our everyday experience actually is everything inside of the first three-dimensional layers. So wherever our attention is, everything inside of the first three-dimensional layers is exactly what is creating. So everything here, if you're mostly in the root survival mode, your reality is made up of these first three-dimensional layers. That's what your reality is. We are nothing but a holographic projection, projecting a hologram and experiencing another hologram. So we think we are these individual humans inside of a world with other humans, but in reality, we are a hologram experiencing a hologram, and together we merge holograms with one another based on resonance. And in this net field, we basically continue to look like these mergings. We experience this, you can say Vesica Pisces, right? Where these two spheres of life force, of frequency merge with one another. We're experiencing this infinitely on many dimensional planes, and all things are experiencing that same form. So we group together in parts of this collective field by resonance. So in this corner over here, you can imagine is you, your family, your friends, everything that you think is something external to you is actually interconnected to you. We our entire human experience is designed by resonance. Even the moment of birth, what you think is your future timelines are all potential timelines that are interconnected to this now moment. So when we discuss creating potential timelines, choosing timelines, okay, this is where things get tricky. How you manifest, how you can begin to affect this center point of creation is only by neutralizing these fields of the body, okay? Because otherwise we are simply recycling data. And it's everything that we're recycling from our ancestral lineage, from our father-mother programs, society, which is a reflection of the same, created by the same. We are continuously repeating these patterns over and over again. So we really don't really even begin to manifest and access timelines until we have this awareness of ourselves and how we are actually computing this reality. Okay, so I'm going to come over here because within our energetic bodies, this is what we look like. Okay, this is all potential available. This is what we look like. And so this is basically in the same way that I showed you that net field of the universe. This is us. This is our universe. This is what you are, your universe. And in your universe, let's say you are at the center point of that. Whichever part of you is aware in the present moment is the part that is, let's say, in control and has the ability to have potential timelines available to it. Okay, that's really, really important. So let's say you start doing some healing work and you start accessing your fragment as a little baby, for example. Okay, you start healing and reintegrating fragments of yourself, because this is what we look like. What does it mean to reintegrate fragments of yourself? It means becoming aware of yourself on all these dimensional layers. It means that your awareness is not just local to just this human life that you've created and the illusion of the human life and the hologram of the human life and just living in cyclical patterns anymore in cause and effect. When you start to become aware of yourself, you are essentially tuning in to the whole self, which is this. This is you. You are this whole self. You are all of these fragments. You are the universe. That's not just a saying. It's actually physically, mathematically, interdimensionally, the truth. And so if this universe that you are, you have the ability of exploring. And in the three-dimensional plane, when we come into the matrix multiverse, because we come into the three-dimensional plane, we're here to explore our three-dimensional expression. Three-dimensional expression is an overlay within a matrix. A matrix is a holographic structure of reality that is created in order to experience something specific. And what we're experiencing is duality. We experience that in many ways. And the name of that game is exchange. Whether we are exchanging balanced or imbalanced will define our ability to create. And so every single one of these experiences that we've had, that we are having simultaneously, remember, time is not linear. So simultaneous experiences we are accessing through the physical vessel, through the body in this current moment, we are able to access these timelines. And so we pull in, when we're done dealing with the trauma of this lifetime, that's when we can start to have access to more information. Why? Because what we're going to realize very quickly is that we're cycling through patterns. And those patterns are not just limited to your current life trauma. They're actually patterns that you're reliving for centuries, lifetimes, actually. And the way that we experience this matrix multiverse in the three-dimensional plane is self-organized consciousness or life force experiencing and it experiencing a 13-dimensional frequencies. Okay, why? Because in this current expression, that in this current timeline that we are sharing here together, we are here to experience the 13th spiral of the genetic multiverse that we are in. Okay, we are here in the 13th dimensional layer experiencing this 13th spiral, which means all the organisms in this 13th dimensional plane have access to their 13th dimensional layers. It doesn't mean you don't have access to other beings with other higher dimensional aspects of themselves. You are all of that. You are this spiral. And as you are exploring the 13 dimensional ones that are available to you in this timeline, you begin to have access to yourself in other dimensional timelines until infinity. So this is where timeline creation gets interesting, because we are cross-sectioning, we are intersecting with ourselves on multiple dimensional planes. Okay, and what that means is that when the human begins to reintegrate fragments, which simply means becoming aware of yourself on these next dimensional planes, you can navigate, you can explore, you can learn about those dimensional planes. And the incredible thing about that is that this is where we begin to access our interdimensional aspects, let's say our ET aspects. All of this data is stored within the holographic DNA. I don't want to show you those slides yet. That's why I'm passing through them very quickly. So please don't get frustrated. All of that data is within your holographic DNA. And because we're experiencing these 13-dimensional frequencies, dimensional planes, 13-dimensional platonic solids that make up these different dimensional layers, which make up the structures and forms of our genetic coding, it's the access of that holographic projection of your genetic code. We are experiencing archetypes, and old souls, quote unquote, old souls are the souls that have lived through the majority of those archetypes. And collectively right now, we are moving into the next coil of this vibrational, of this DNA code, you can say, or this evolutionary cycle. Collectively, we are moving through that. So what that means is that everything is becoming readjusted. The speed of the universe of this timeline is really fast, and it's beginning to match these timelines in higher dimensional planes. Okay, we are literally oscillating at higher dimensional frequency, which means that we now have access to all of this data, all of this other data. This is why technology is advancing at the rate that it is. This is why we are having conversations about UFOs and ETs and psychic abilities and healing abilities, because this is kind of the next manifestation of a whole genetic structure that we're moving into. We're in resonance to that. And this is how we are evolving collectively. So why is this important when we're discussing choosing timelines? Because collectively, evolution is inherent to this experience. So it's not like we have to work towards evolution. It's not like we have to try hard to evolve. In reality, we are evolving as this entire system is moving through these coils of manifestation, okay? And so all the souls that have participated in experiencing this collective experience together are literally designed genetically, interdimensionally for this experience. And I want to insert this, which might add a little layer of complexity, but I think it's important because I have this question a lot. A lot of contactees, people that are already having channeled experiences, which has grown rampantly over the past couple of years, these people are activating this aspect, their interdimensionality. They are accessing and activating DNA, which has become such a cliche, but we don't really understand what that means. Activating DNA means that you're accessing these aspects of yourself. And within these higher dimensional layers, you're meeting interdimensional beings, which are fragments of yourself. You're also becoming aware of your lineages that you are coming down from, okay? And what that means is that because our DNA is a cocktail of DNA, which means you are a cocktail of structures of platonic solids, you're a cocktail of different bloodlines, different expressions of consciousness. You have all of that access to yourself. So those of you that resonate with Pleiadians, Arcturians, all these species, reptilians, draconians, because all of that is encoded in our genetics, not only through hybridization, through the evolution of our physical aspect of ourselves through this dimensional timeline, but as a whole, this organism has cultivated itself through that hybridization program, through the merging of these timelines, through the interacting and becoming aware of these points of awareness on multiple dimensional layers. And every single one of the aspects of ourselves that is becoming aware of these dimensional layers has the ability to tune in to the data of that frequency in that dimensional plane. So the Pleiadians have specific traits that we've now understood. And even though it's not a finite definition of that, all that we're looking at, and I want you to move away from the idea of compartmentalizing species into certain names and categories, because all that we're accessing are these 13 ranges of vibrational frequency. Some of you have access to beings beyond 13 dimensional planes. And that means that you have that in your genetic code. You have access to that. You've cultivated access to that through your evolutionary process. Also, on another layer, there's an overlay of genetic modification, in a sense, that is intelligently designed by councils of consciousness that are basically, by resonance, managing the genetic modification of certain bloodlines through this evolutionary process. And it's not that this is a nefarious necessarily. I don't look at anything as black and white. It's not that it's a nefarious kind of program, but what it is from the bigger picture, organisms are self-organizing themselves in order to best sustain and continue the evolution of this organism, of this matrix, more specifically. And remember that this is just one timeline. There are infinite timelines. So in other timelines, the facts of these structures and laws of creation are very different. So they manifest in different ways. So remember that when you're beginning to tune in to creating timelines, we're choosing from all of these systems. And what allows the human to create is entering the 0 point of themselves, in which they are no longer necessarily I don't really want to say like influenced or tainted by, but it's not specifically informed by the limitations of any of those things. In fact, when we enter this 0 point of your own self, this is where the frequency begins to enter into this centrifugal vortex of movement. And the physical body now has the ability of manifesting and creating. There are different states in which we can embody. Okay, so this basically is showing how we manifest when we are at cause, when our focus is at cause. Our energetic body essentially looks like this. The vibrational frequency is this, let's say, a darker red, and so it's very slow. And so essentially you really can't affect anything on here other than your physical reality, and you're cycling through self-similar patterns of experience. I also have something called reading state, which is once you have began to become aware of these cyclical patterns, you can begin to learn how to control what you are expressing and from where in your system you are expressing. So if you want to come into a state of intuition and merging with the collective DNA of the earth, you can begin to access the heart, the throat, and the third eye, and your crown. More importantly, the crown, because the crown, again, is the seventh dimensional layer. This is the one that merges with the earth grid of genetic data. That's where you can start reading the Akashic records. You can start tuning into higher levels of information. And to be balanced is really the way that we want to be on an everyday state. Your physical body looks like this. You are more intuitive, more in tune with the creation state, and the rest of your body is aware, completely aware, control, and in the present moment. And when we enter this state, we create a state of complete neutrality. We learn how to come into a state of complete neutrality. The entire vortex, it creates this incredible collapse that you are no longer moving in these slow vortices of creation. In fact, you are spinning faster. And the speed of your spin of your entire body creates a resonance in which you can begin to move at higher dimensional planes. You cannot move and navigate higher dimensional planes when you're in a lower frequency. Absolutely cannot. You can't. This is why in CE5s and in all these kinds of meditations for interdimensional activity, it is incredibly important to bring the body into a state of neutrality and to learn how to manage your energetic body. And our physical body that is storing data, that is suffering or survival, will block the ability of that spin to move through. Now, navigating the higher dimensional planes when you are trying to manifest a timeline, the more you go into your crown and your higher dimensional planes, the faster you will be moving, the more you have the ability of tuning in to potential timelines on a higher creative manner. So we have to activate the 8th to the 13th chakra, which means layer of the body, which means dimensional layer, which means holographic DNA. You have to activate that. You can only access that by beginning to access these higher dimensional expressions of your own self. And when you live in this state, that's when you start to experience the magic of life. You begin to have an effortless experience in that you are now having a symbiotic relationship with all things around you. And we become now a creator. And the level of creation depends on your primal and your core belief system. So if you are in a state of survival, no God, false gods, you are in a state of no creation. You are completely at effect of the environment around you. The more that you rise in your vibrational frequency, the more that you become aware of yourself, the more you activate your DNA, the more you move your focus into the higher dimensional planes, the more you experience unity, the more you experience collective compassion, unconditional love, awareness, and finally creation. So this is actually where we start to play the real game. The real game. You have to know who is playing the game, how they're playing the game, and your participation in that. If you're down here you are contributing to parasitic exchanges because your focus is not coming from the place of unity, and your entire structure of your body isn't with the capacity to co-create and manifest. It simply is not. And even though we still manifest on these lower levels, the things that we manifest are limited by our limiting beliefs. So if your belief is the focus is on wealth, sure, you can manifest all that wealth, but it's going to come with those same consequences, those same energies, those same frequencies, for example. If you want to manifest love, fantastic. You're going to attract another person, but it's going to be, again, living out those repetitive patterns, the karmic cyclical patterns of suffering, pain, and expansion for yourself, which is also great. I mean, you're expanding through all these experiences. Again, you're never not evolving. You are always evolving. So that's really important to remember. But manifestation and choosing timelines really begins to activate when we come into these higher states. And at this time that we're in right now, in this collective evolution, this collective experience, we really want to come into this awareness so that we can begin to access collective consciousness. You can only reach that collective consciousness when you're in that state of creation, because you are now creating this symbiotic experience. You're in a state of neutrality. Your entire vortex is spinning faster. You can now manifest. And literally, there is an implosion that creates within the body that is now a generator of the hologram. Okay. And so this is where you begin to choose timelines collectively that are now focused on the collective well-being, not just service to self. Sometimes we think that we're doing good for others by doing healings for others, holding space, but the laws of exchange are sometimes complex, because sometimes you might think that you're doing something good for someone else, but in fact you are actually blocking or limiting that person's expansion with what you're doing. So you have to really understand the subconscious belief systems, your own subconscious programs, and what you're doing in complete awareness without fear of seeing truth, in order to really tune in to what is the best for the collective. And sometimes these things require major transformation for the collective, which might mean temporary suffering until each individual becomes aware of themselves, because that fusion that is created internally is what creates that implosion for creation. This is an very much a biochemical, electrical generator of experience projection that we're creating. So those mechanics are incredibly important. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. And I really hope that this helped you understand the mechanics of manifestation and how we are co-creating collectively and individually, and how choosing timelines is something to do with your frequency. That when you fine tune and cultivate your frequency, you become in resonance with what you're looking to experience. And we have to be mindful of that. The awareness has to go down to the cellular level, out to the macro, and collectively co-create with one another, especially in times that, like we're in right now, move out of the state of survival into the state of creation, truth, awareness, where we are completely surrendering, in a sense, balancing the feminine and masculine aspects of ourselves in order to become a generator of life, a generator of creation. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you soon. All my love.